Professor Lyle, kind-hearted soul that he was, prattled on, so to no one in particular, pretending not to notice the rumbling of her stomach, though of course he had heard it. He had excellent hearing. They all did. He looked up from his examinations, his face all cattywampus from the classical.
Starvation would explain why the vampire was desperate enough to trifle Miss Terabody out of ball rather than taking to the slums like the smart ones do when they get this bad.
Alexia grimaced. No associated hive, either. Lord Macon arched one black eyebrow, professing not to be impressed.
How could you possibly know that?
Professor Lyle explained for the both of them.
To be so direct with the young lady, a High Queen would never have let one of her brood get into such a famished condition. We must have a rove on our hands, one completely without ties to the local hive.
Alexia stood up, revealing to Lord Macon that she had arranged her faint to rest comfortably against a fallen settee pillow. He grinned and then quickly hid it behind a frown when she looked at him suspiciously. I have a different theory. She gestured to the vampire's clothing. Badly tied cravat and a cheap shirt. No hive worth its salt would let a larva like that out without dressing him properly for a public appearance. I'm surprised he was not stopped at the front entrance. The Duchess's footman really ought to have spotted a cravat like that prior to the reception line and forcibly ejected the wearer. I suppose good staff is hard to come by with all the best ones becoming drones these days, but such a shirt. The Earl of Wolsey glared at her.
Cheap clothing's no excuse for killing a man.
That's what you say. Alexia evaluated Lord Macon's perfectly tailored shirt front and exquisitely tied cravat. His dark hair was a bit too long and shaggy to be demode, and his face was not entirely clean-shaven, but he possessed enough hauteur to carry this lower-class roughness off without seeming scruffy. She was certain that his silver and black paisley cravat must be tied under duress, under sufferance. He probably preferred to wander about bare-chested at home. The idea made her shiver oddly. It must take a lot of effort to keep a man like him tidy. Not to mention well-tailored. He was bigger than most. She had to give credit to his valet, who must be a particularly tolerant claviger. Lord Macon was normally quite patient. Like most of his kind, he'd had to learn to be such in polite society, but Miss Terapati seemed to bring out the worst of his animal urges.
Stop trying to change the subject.
He snapped, squirming under her calculated scrutiny.
Tell me what happened.
He put on his burr face and pulled out a small metal tube, stylus, and a pot of clear liquid. He unrolled the tube with the small cranking device, clicked the top off the liquid, and dipped the stylus into it. It sizzled ominously. Alexia bristled at his autocratic tone. Do not give me instructions in that tone of voice, you... She searched for a particularly insulting word. Puppy! I'm jolly well not one of your pack. Lord Conall Macon, Earl of Wolsey, was alpha of the local werewolves, and as a result, he had access to a wide array of truly vicious methods of dealing with Miss Alexia Terabody. Instead of bridling at her insults, puppy indeed, he brought out his best offensive weapon, the result of decades of personal experience with more than one alpha she-wolf. Scottish he may be by birth, but that only made him better equipped to deal with strong-willed females.
Stop playing verbal games with me, madame, or I shall go out into that ballroom, find your mother, and bring her here.
Alexia wrinkled her nose. Well, I like that. That's hardly playing a fair game. No one necessarily callous, she admonished. Her mother did not know that Alexia was preternatural. Mrs. Loontwill, and she was Loontwill since her remarriage, leaned a little too far toward the frivolous in any given equation. She was prone to wearing yellow and engaging in bouts of hysteria. Combining her mother with a dead vampire and her daughter's true identity was a recipe for disaster on all possible levels. The fact that Alexia was preternatural had been explained to her at age 6, by a nice gentleman from the civil service with silver hair and a silver cane, werewolf specialist. Along with the dark hair and prominent nose, preternatural was something Miss Terabody had had to thank her dead Italian father for.